Throughout Central and Eastern Europe, there have been several examples of Russian disinformation campaigns that have been quite effective. I've mentioned Estonia. So in 2007, Estonia had recently joined the European Union and NATO, and they were rapidly democratizing and Europeanizing their society. They were the inventors of Skype. They had a lot of e-governance going on. And Russia felt like it was losing one of the jewels in its post-communist crown. In fact, it had, since Estonia had gained accession to both of those international bodies. And so using the Russian ethnic population in Estonia, which numbered about 25% of the population of modern Estonia left over from the Soviet period, they were able to inflame ethnic tensions using mainstream Russian-speaking media and push a divisive narrative between the Russians in Estonia and the ethnic Estonians, saying that the government wasn't listening to their grievances, that they were being treated like second-class citizens. And again, a lot of this was true. The Russians had a real reason to feel like they were second-class citizens in Estonia, because many of them didn't even have citizenship in modern Estonia. And so Russia really wheedled these grievances, and it led to protests in the streets of Tallinn, the capital of Estonia, which killed one person. There were riots in the old town. There was a cyber attack that took down some government services online, some taxi cabs, banks, newspapers, and all of this was kind of the beta version of disinformation that we see today. That was in an era that social media wasn't as ubiquitous as it is today. And throughout, the past several years, 15 years or so in Central and Eastern Europe, we've seen these attacks continue to mount. So in 2008, when Russia was at war with Georgia for 5 days, we saw disinformation campaigns targeting not only the Georgian population, but the international audience as well. Margarita Simonyan, who is the editor-in-chief of Russia Today, RT, said that campaign to gain international favor during the war with Georgia was one of the reasons she was able to get more funding for RT, because Russia didn't have a very easy time influencing international audiences. We have also seen, of course, a massive disinformation campaign against Ukraine from 2013 and 2014 to today. Russia, of course, very famously illegally annexed the Crimean Peninsula of Ukraine, which was Ukraine's sovereign territory, after the Winter Olympics in 2014, and subsequently invaded the eastern part of Ukraine, the Donbas region, and along with those kinetic activities, really had a strong informational component against the new Ukrainian government that was brought about by popular protest in response to the former government deciding they were going to more closely align with Russia. So they were basically attacking this rejection of Russian hegemony by the Ukrainian people. And they did this again through commenting on different blogs and news sites. They did this by targeting Ukrainian soldiers at the front line with text messages threatening their families and encouraging them to desert. They did this through mainstream media as well. We see many Russian-aligned channels, TV channels and radio stations in Ukraine peddling Russian disinformation on the mainstream airwaves. And that perhaps is the most well-known example, aside from the United States, of Russian disinformation recently. And it's certainly one that has affected lives. This is Europe's only hot war, and much of that war is being fought in the information space. And it has so far, as of 2021, claimed at least 13,000 lives. And without that informational component, I don't think it would have been as successful or as protracted as it is today. Certainly, that is a troubling example of how disinformation can cost lives and disrupt the functioning of not only Europe whole, free, and at peace, but the world whole, free, and at peace. And I think we need to remind ourselves of that fact when we wonder, what are the effects of disinformation campaigns? It can be very difficult to track an ad that someone sees online and then their behavior at the voting booth. But we have a great example in Ukraine of the ways that disinformation can tear societies apart.